Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:33. This is a special meeting, mostly to go over Gen Board nominations, the new vice president. We were gonna talk about the show budget, and possibly reopening the SOP. So for those of you who don't know, Rebecca did, step down from the VP position. We had quite a few great members step up for the role, and we decided to fill that space with Jen Jordan. So congratulations to Jen. She'll be interim vice president until the next elections.
Congratulations, Jen.
Then I wanted to talk about the I got people, sorry, still people coming into the waiting room. Okay. So we wanted to talk about the Gen Board elections. And I'm going to pull up the procedures for that.
If you get to it on there.
What's that? I'm sorry. So the new Gen Board members take their spot in March. So I wanted to open the floor for any one who has nominations for that, who they think would be good for any of those roles. There will be 3 spots, and we will send a jot form vote out so that everyone can vote through the end of the month. And then the new board members will take their positions in March at the next meeting. So I will open the floor for those nominations at this time.
I nominate.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nominate Mason.
Okay.
I second Mason.
What positions are we nominating for?
It's the 3 general board member positions.
Hey, Leah,
Yeah.
are you okay to run this? I apologize. I actually have to head back to the hospital. So
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I just want to make sure. I think I've got it. Yep.
okay, thank you. I'm
You're
sorry, I
welcome.
apologize. All right.
You're okay. You're okay. I
All
feel
right.
better.
Thanks, bye.
So I'm going to open the floor for 5 minutes. If anybody has any nominations that they want to bring forward. And then tonight we will start sending those jot forms out. So you can anonymously vote for who you would like to be in one of those positions.
I nominate a few people. Since we have a few different openings, I'm going to nominate Lindsay Hughes, Michael Rose, and Chuck Branham.
I'll second those.
These people will have the opportunity to accept the nomination or not, correct?
Yes.
All right, I nominate Renee Goldie.
I supported this nomination. I stumped for the following.
I'll second that.
From the administration. I said I didn't want them on the 7th floor because that's a very
I'd like to throw another name in there
Okay.
if she's interested. I would like to nominate Sarah Michael.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And I believe Chuck's on the meeting. Chuck, do you accept that nomination?
I will.
Okay. I believe Sarah Michael is here. Do you accept the nomination? If you don't want to stay here, you don't have to. You can always get to me later.
Yes, that's fine. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute.
You're okay. You're good. You're good. I believe we have Renee here.
Yes, I
Would you-
accept.
Okay. Lindsay, I know we have you here.
Yes, ma'am. I'll accept. That's fine.
Okay. And I don't know if we have Mason here or not tonight. I don't believe so. I'll reach out to him later. And I'll leave this open for another minute. If anyone else wants to bring forward any nominations, feel free to do so. Oh, and Mason is joining us. Mason, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. You have been nominated for board position. Do you accept the nomination?
Uh, is it just a position or do I know which position?
It'll be up for vote, but if you want to accept, to be voted on for one of those three board positions.
I'll accept.
Okay, and do we have Michael here as well?
Yeah, I'm here. I accept.
Okay. Any other nominations before I close that? Okay. We're going to move on to, we discussed in our officer meeting a show budget. And with how much we want to allow the show committee to spend on either flyers or ribbons or any type of marketing for shows. I had suggested $1,000 budget because we do have close to 9,000 currently in the overall budget. And I wanted to get a vote via the members here. I need at least a 2/3 if they are okay with that amount, or if anyone has different suggestions.
How many events is it for?
It could be for anything that opens up throughout the year. So, I know we have quite a few, there's quite a few that open up in Texas. We've got the one in Kentucky. And hopefully there'll be more. So
We are working on one this summer in Oregon, and we are working on some market or smaller fairs in various different states as well.
We,
I'm sorry.
there a cap? Is there a cap on it? Or can it be expanded if need be?
if it does need to be expanded, we can bring that up for a vote.
I would think, and just as a side note, we are hoping to have a fall show here in Kentucky after we get, if we survive the one this weekend. But with that budget, I would probably think we need to establish some sort of guideline per event, just so we don't like spend all our money on one show or something, and
Right.
just for fairness and everything. And then that kind of gives us a ballpark to like forecast for future shows. If we know we spend, I don't know, just pulling a number out, $250 a show, when we get to where we have 15 shows, we can kind of plan better if we're used to working within a threshold.
Definitely.
I can address some of that a little bit. part of what we were wanting to incorporate in that budget is the show committee has been working on building a show packet that would go to an ACBA member that would be attending a given show. That includes a laminated packet for judges to use that stays on top of the cages during the show, as well as already printed off flyers that can be available near the quail during the show for people to take to advertise the ACBA. That would include any fees or anything like that for information booths. For the most part, most shows do not charge for an information booth. I'm doing one of those in Texas next weekend. But it includes some of that back and forth shipping. It would include ribbons if ribbons were needed. Lindsay is doing ribbons for the Caternix quail at her show. I do foresee a lot of shows that are welcoming quail back for a second or a third time are going to start including ribbons in their own budgets for the quail, but we wanted to have something available especially if there are juniors entering at live shows, to where they could go home with something for participating with quail. And then also we could talk about it. It's not something that's been brought up in show committee, but if we wanted to sponsor some awards or do some kind of advertising, especially at shows where we are repeat.
Sounds beautiful. It's a show in a box.
So just to clarify, you guys are expecting, or we're thinking $1,000 for 15 events, so basically $66 per event is what you guys were proposing?
This is just like a starting point. So, and then, if we realize that, that budget does need to be larger, we can bring it back to the table, and put that for vote.
I think we should go ahead and increase it now. $66 isn't a lot, but what about the treasurer? Aaron, you want to weigh in on that?
Aaron's not here.
He's not here tonight.
Yeah, I think
We can always bring that back to the table at the March meeting if you guys want to. If you want to propose some ideas on how much you feel that should be spent, we could definitely do that for the next March meeting. What would you guys be proposing at that time?
For me personally, I think if we, between now and then, can at least get hey, this is the kind of the number we're looking at, because everybody's like, oh, $1,000 is cool, but then when you actually do the math of how many events we're actually looking at, that's not very much or practical. I mean, 7 ribbons is going to be like $200, so you're not going to get very far off of that budget. So I think that needs to be something the show committee should at least say, hey, we're going to cover this many events, or we will cover this many, and everything after that has to be an add-on, I guess, would be a better way to do that versus just doing a blanket, hey, this is the money.
Yeah.
The ribbons that so out of my own pocket, I'm not asking for reimbursement. I ordered a series of ribbons, various different styles, to try out a few different things in a few different colors that should be here hopefully before the March meeting, but I can't guarantee it because it is show season and the ribbon producers are somewhat behind schedule. But most of those ribbons are coming in somewhere between $1.45 and $4.50 each. And then there are 2 rolls of ribbons that I had thought would be beneficial to add on to the rosettes in certain circumstances. Those rolls of ribbons would handle probably more shows than we could go through in 2 years. But the rosettes themselves are the ones that are somewhere between $1.50 and $4.50 each. So if each show, our thought process was kind of a champion, reserve champion, and then some kind of junior ribbon I wouldn't foresee more than 4 or 5 ribbons per show.
What's the cost on those 4 or 5 though? I'm sorry if I missed that, but what was the cost on the 4 or
Even if
5?
we went with the highest, even if we said $5 a ribbon for 5 ribbons, it would be $25 a show for ribbons.
So, Jen, do you think you could get with the show committee and kind of come up maybe with like a packaged sort of deal on what each show would be, like roughly, and then we could throw a budget together then, and we'll propose that at March.
Yes, for sure I can. I did save the receipt from shipping to Rebecca this go around, which included an additional binder that we are trialing out. So I do know what the shipping cost is for the show packet, and it would be the same for the return shipping plus the cost of ribbons. So as of right now, that's about where we would be at each show unless we decided to sponsor or do some kind of advertisement where we pay the show to be in their show catalog or something along those lines.
Okay.
I have a quick question for, and this might be something that Lindsay could answer. Do junior members usually have to pay for their entry, or are junior members usually free?
For our show for In Cage, everybody pays. It is not a different price between juniors and open, just for continuity. We do showmanship for free as part of their entry. But yeah, the juniors still have an entry, the regular per bird fee and their cleanup fee.
Okay. Could we maybe consider sponsoring junior members who want to show with ACBA money?
I agree with that.
That's
I
really
would second
I
that.
like
I like
it.
that as well.
I personally,
I-
I'd rather that than a ton of ribbons for people. Get more people involved in it.
Do we want to, does someone want a motion to vote on that, to include that in the show budget?
I'll make-
Motion. It's Lindsay.
Okay.
Second. Renee or Renee could correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that most shows in Texas are half price for juniors, and I believe there is a fee for showmanship.
Okay. And
So
who
yeah, and
sorry, I'm taking the notes too. Who seconded that?
I did.
Okay.
And
yeah, to add on, my daughter does showing in Texas, so for the most part, the entry fees for juniors it depends on if they're doing multi-card shows. Some of them they do open shows or multi-card, and then junior shows are only 1 card, so they pay less because they're getting less cards judged.
Okay.
And then showmanship generally runs about $10 to enter for most shows.
Okay. I know it's 5 here for Florida, but yeah, I'd be thinking it'd be around those prices. Okay. All right. And then, so we'll include that, cover the junior members and the show budget. That will be proposed for March.
Can we back up just a little bit? Sarah, Michael, is it similar entry fees for fairs or market shows? And are we including that in this vote, or are we simply talking APA, ABA shows?
So with our Cuyahoga County Fair that we are allowed to show quail at, it's just the $12 fee for up to 36 birds. I would say don't include your county fairs though.
Okay.
And I guess one more thing to add would be if the entry fee is per bird, there might be a cap on how many birds
we would sponsor. Yeah.
Yeah. Agree with that. So I guess we can also include with the proposed budget a cap when we bring up that budget in March. And I'm sure you can kind of discuss that within show committee. Okay. The next topic I wanted to go over, we lost Lindsay. Hold on 1 second. Okay. The next topic I wanted to go over was to discuss and motion to reopen the finalization of the SOP. When we went back and counted the votes from the last meeting, there were only 8 votes and 1 no on that meeting. So we didn't have a 2/3 vote there. I also sent out today, which I hope everyone received via email, the updates on the show committee and the show and SOP on kind of where everything's at with the color standard. So I wanted to open the floor for the next 5 minutes if anybody has questions, thoughts on that.
I sent an email in regard to rescinding this vote, partly because when the SOP was put into draft form, it was mandated that it would stay that way for 2 years. We have not exceeded that 2 years. May would be those 2 years. As show committee chair and as somebody who has attended a lot of shows, the feedback that we received was not super beneficial in the first year of showing. It has been a lot more beneficial and a lot more productive in the second year of showing, which was part of the reason needing to have it in draft form for some time so that we could get feedback from APA judges and ABA judges, as well as fairs and markets. We are just now branching into the fairs and markets, even though like Sarah's fair has allowed it for several years. It's an area that we are just really starting in Texas. I've only got 2 FFA groups that are starting to allow them as projects and move them in. So we don't have a lot of feedback in that area either. And that particular area pertains to size more so than color, but that is also an important aspect of the SOP, and we really need to have some of that feedback from those judges and just the general poultry community as we are building our SOP so that we make sure to do it correctly.
So does that need to be extended? Does the time need to be extended, or?
Ideally,
why wasn't it put in there in the first place?
I'm sorry.
Go with
I
Chuck
missed that
first.
part of what you said.
Go with Chuck first.
Chuck,
My question was, does that 2 years need to be extended so we can get the feedback?
Ideally, yes. I think partly because it's really only been the past 3 or 4 years that the quail community itself has wrapped its head around the various different colors and patterns and how they work together. Just even a general understanding of those different things. It's something that is new to us who know about quail and is definitely overwhelming and hard to understand for somebody looking from the outside in. And there's a lot of things. I mean, we talk about getting bird blind. We can get bird blind because we understand it. There's a lot of stuff that judges have brought up that would not have even crossed our mind that are necessary definitions to have in the SOP. We take it as standard. They don't understand it. And so we need to be very specific when we are defining things in there, and outside feedback is important.
I have a question.
okay.
Is it, I don't obviously know much about other breeds and shows and stuff. Is it ever necessary to close the SOP, or would it make more sense to make it into a living document?
It would make more sense to make it into a living document. And in all actuality, I had several conversations with people after the last meeting. In all actuality, as soon as we finalize it and apply to the APA, we lose the right to really edit anything that is in the APA standard. And so if we want to have control and maintain and grow the SOP as quail grow, as we discover new things, what have you, the longer we keep it in draft form, the better off we're going to be.
Can I ask something real quick then on this part for
Yes.
what you just said, Jen?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at our SOP, we're saying we want outside opinion and everything, right? Is what you basically just said. Okay, so my question then is why are we copywriting it and saying that we can't distribute it to have other people be able to look at it? If
We
we're wanting
can
this to be a
distribute.
living document, then that kind of contradicts.
We can distribute it to judges and we can have it present for review at shows, but almost all clubs require you to be a member to access their SOP.
Okay, but you're saying that we want everybody to have access and look at it and grow the input on Quail, right? So that kind of
I'm
contradicts.
saying I'm saying judges in particular and poultry people who show having their opinions on how we are defining things because those are the people that are ingrained in how things are defined.
Okay. Our Colorado judges that we dealt with last year, that we got all of our birds for, they contradict that or they don't agree with that. They're saying that it should be more of the outside users, mom, pop, the 4-H, all those people being able to have the impact because they're the ones that are going to be growing. They're the ones that are going to be doing the husbandry. They're the ones that should be setting that standard on that, not a closed organization. And that was a direct quote from a judge.
I guess I would ask that judge if they would say the same thing to the APA because the APA
They don't agree
charges
with it
an
on the
arm and a
APA
leg.
either.
And I mean, it's kind of the same principle. If 4-H people and other poultry people want to be involved in the development of the SOP, they should be ACBA members and invested in the building of the SOP. That doesn't mean that the SOP isn't available to that 4-H group as they're doing their programs. That is something just the same as providing the SOP to judges prior to show. I would provide the SOP to a 4-H or FFA teacher that is helping a student with that program, but I'm not going to make the SOP readily available on my website for anybody to just download.
Yeah, that seems like a flaw or issue on that one. You go to a horse show and they tell you exactly what you're going to be graded on. You know that doesn't. I don't know. That doesn't seem right to me on that.
It's available when they show up at the show. It is in a laminated form
Right.
on top of the cages if they didn't have it already.
Okay, but if you don't know what the air quote standard is, you're going into a show completely blind, not knowing, hey, this is how my bird is going to stack up to the SOP. Because at this point, we haven't released it to anybody, and we're not even saying it's finalized. So for all we're saying, you guys are saying, oh, this is going to be a living document. Cool. Well, if I go to a show in August and then I don't go till December, but the ACBA's decided in between there that now something's changed in the SOP, I have no clue and I don't know if my bird actually meets even the standard anymore.
The SOP is on the website, the ACBA website.
Okay, but that's for ACBA people. That's not little Susie that's trying to show her birds at a show.
I know there are several APA members and ABA members in this crowd right now. I understand if you don't want to speak up, but fact of the matter is APA does not make theirs available to the general public. ABA, as far as I understand, also does not make theirs available to the general public. Anybody who is going to a show is already used to a paywall.
So it's also a perk of membership. You know, it has been mentioned before that, you know, people are paying for membership and they need to have something for what they're paying for. And that is the ability to access that SOP.
And
Renee,
I do understand what where you're coming from, Brent. I do. And I don't know if at some point, because it's what you're saying makes sense to me. It does. Because if you have somebody that is new or doesn't know what they're looking for, it would be nice for them to have something so that, you know, they don't kind of blindly enter a bird and not do well when they want to do well. I do understand where you're coming from with that. Maybe in the future, it's something we could look into, maybe just kind of some easy guideline, not the whole SOP, but maybe some easy guideline for people, so that they do have some sort of access to kind of what they're looking for, as we're finishing the SOP.
That is something that the show committee actually has discussed, how to prep for a show, what to look for in your bird, things to do with your bird before you go to a show. All of those things. Bree put out a very basic one last year into the ACBA as well. Those are definitely beneficial tools.
So I can kind of, yeah, contribute a little bit of knowledge from the poultry side. We're members of the APA, we're members of the ABA. We've been showing for years at this point. When we first started showing, so the APA and ABA standard, you have to purchase yourself, and they're like $80-some a piece. So when we first started showing, we did not have a copy of the standard. We took some birds, we took them to a show, and we got what we got. They weren't great birds. We didn't even have the breed correct on them. The judge went by and corrected the tag because we didn't even know. So yeah, a lot of kids are relying on, like, I'm the poultry project leader for our local 4-H. I have kids, messaging me saying, hey, I'm looking at getting Rhode Island red bantams. What's the standard for that? And so I basically give them the little chunk for the Rhode Island red and send it to them, but I'm not sending them the whole standard, obviously. So yeah, that is a poultry thing too, is you have to buy the standard yourself. You can't go on the APA website and become an APA member and have a copy of it. You still have to buy the standard even if you're a member. So that's just from the poultry side.
Got it.
So in that regard, by us giving it to members, we're already giving them a perk that other poultry groups don't do.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because that's saving them $80 based off, versus the APA or the ABA.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other comments?
I had a couple comments. I guess the first one, I know some of the folks here have only been members for a few months, but all of the issues of putting the standard behind a paywall were heavily discussed when the organization was set up. And that was one of the foundational ideas was let's set up an organization to do that. Let's charge dues. Let's set it up kind of like the APA and mirroring some of those other clubs. So these aren't conversations that we didn't have back then. So we're kind of reiterating them a little bit. But if it sounds like we already have our minds up when certain people are talking, it's probably because they were at those meetings where all this was hashed out in excruciating detail already and were there when that decision was made. So if I remember correctly, some of those things were even member vote, even if it was informal in those early meetings. It wasn't all just a small group of people talking behind the scenes. It was in the big public meetings. And then second thing was just kind of reiterating some of what Jen said. On a similar note, when we first set out, we laid out all these timelines, and we actually made more strict rules for the SOP committee for how we were going to publish the standard than we even have for changing bylaws. So we had the timeline all set out, and then a more strict measure for making any changes after we publish things. So we even have fairly strict measures for just making changes to the draft form. And that was intentionally to hold the SOP committee to, at the time it was SOP and show committee before they were split, but it was to hold it to, I guess, not necessarily a higher standard, but just a slower and more methodical standard to make sure that every member was aware whenever any change was made and they had a time to voice their concerns or share their opinions and have that all considered. So yeah, the idea of just rushing it to finalization when I know at least Jen and I have been discussing in detail some of the changes that we're going to make. And I know at least two wording changes and a couple other significant changes that we need to figure out how to change in the SOP are crucial before we actually finalize anything. So if we're just finalizing it for us and we can make changes, great. But if we're talking about what we had originally set out, which was to finalize it and then apply to the APA, that's a much bigger deal to have those things ironed out so that we're not making changes to it later.
To
So,
go back a little bit to what Brent was talking about as well, we have, or I should say, SOP committee has started to put out surveys and various different questions to many of the different quail groups in order to get some information and feedback from the general public. One went out this week regarding jumbos. The size standard is something that has been heavily discussed in the SOP lately. So it is, and if you read the email that Leah sent out before this earlier today with the SOP committee updates, it is in there that the SOP committee is going to be doing those surveys and is going to be asking the general quail community multiple questions over the next several weeks and months in regard to items that have been discussed already in SOP.
so, and I got that, Jen, like I saw that email. My question though is your wording, and don't take this as a personal thing, but your wording is we are starting new. But then you're also telling us that we need more time. Those two things can't go hand in hand. You guys have had a year to have been doing this stuff, but now we're just doing it because magically there was pressure applied on this? That doesn't make sense.
We aren't just now doing it because pressure was applied. A lot of these questions were actually brought up by judges multiple times, and they were discussed in show committee and in SOP committee. Show committee, especially following the Pips and Chicks show, there was a very large conversation in regard to color standards. That was held in show committee chat, and it was also held in another private breeders group on Facebook. That is one that Aaron was privy to, as he is a member or able to see what goes on in show committee. Those were conversations that were being had in July following the Pips and Chicks show. This is not something that is just suddenly now happening because somebody applied a little bit of pressure. These are conversations that have been going on for a long time behind the scenes. These are conversations that were actually going on before the draft was even made available on the website. I was a member of the ACBA during that time before the draft was even available. These are conversations that have been had multiple times amongst serious breeders for years, more than a year.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I've been a member for a year, and this is the first time you guys have come forward with anything. So that's my kind of question mark / concern.
Okay, I guess another thing I would like to address to this whole crowd, even though there's not very many members on there, all of us that are members of Facebook, I would encourage you to post your questions into the Facebook group. Post your curiosities, post your, hey, what is this committee? What does it do? Whatever. I mean, none of these questions were brought up anywhere in any platform where anybody could give an answer. And we're adults. We are capable of having these conversations. We are capable of throwing a quick question into a Facebook group, and we're capable of listening to other people's answers and discussing it. It is not something that people should feel like they cannot come forward with. And after the last member meeting, there were several people who mentioned that they've never tried to do any of those things because they felt like the tension was too much in order to ask those questions. So we need to, as a group, be welcoming, not be pointing fingers, not be trying to say who's on what side or who's gatekeeping or anything else. We need to be having conversations, and we need to be comfortable in bringing these items up in our private Facebook group before they get out of hand.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I'm not trying to say one way or the other on team. You guys are asking, hey, what's your view or opinion on it? And that's all I'm doing is laying out, this is my view on it. You know, we're all going to disagree on it one way or the other, but the question still is like, how if we are saying we need to reopen this because of X, Y, or Z, I sure didn't know that that was what was going on behind the scenes because you're saying it's behind the scenes. This is the first time I've seen Michael on in a year. You know, that if he's running the SOP committee, I don't have a point of reference to even who we're supposed to be bringing those questions up to on the group. So
But
that's
you
where
could have
that's kind of
asked that
coming
in
in
the
on.
Facebook group. It would have been an easy question to answer in the
The
Facebook group.
Or via
in the
email
group
as
that's heavily
well.
censored and very.
I'd like to say something real quick. First of all, the SOP committee has never been closed. That was brought up at the last meeting, and it has never been a closed meeting. Michael's or a closed committee. Michael's here and can attest to that. So there's been a lot of talk between the SOP committee and the show committee. And, you know, Michael has attended shows and spoken to judges and gotten their information. You know, there's been this big push to get the SOP in the APA. So we need the input from the people who are actually going to be judging the birds to be able to do that. So that would be why we're opening it up. You know, that's who we need to hear from is the judges who are actually going to be doing the judging. Additionally, I do want to bring up, because this is getting a little off track, and I don't want to see it get heated again. It was very unprofessional at the last meeting. And we have junior members here that deserve to be able to come to a meeting and see a level of professionalism and people being adults. We don't need swearing. We don't need throwing phones. We don't need people ganging up to try to do some sort of personal vendetta against people. We need to be professional here.
You really don't want me to reply to that, but my vote's no.
I believe Kelly wants to. Kelly, are you on mute?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say when you were talking about people speaking up and stuff, I actually think, and I'm not, I think I like Jen and I like Leo and stuff. I feel like you guys have done a pretty good job like keeping it kosher, but there are certain people that I'm not going to name point. They're not here to defend themselves, but they are very intense. And when you try to speak up and ask a genuine question, they're kind of scary. And so it's not just members that might be like, it's not just me. I'm sure that's scared to speak up sometimes because there's some scary people. But also, I think it's possible that the questions could get vetted in the Facebook group too.
So when a post is made in the Facebook group, one of us admins, the board members, and I believe some of the gen board are on as moderators as well. It gets looked at and then it gets posted. If it's really like off the wall, doesn't belong there, it would get denied. But general questions like, you know, where are we at on things? Oh, hey, the show wants to let quail in. Like, I've got a question on this. It's like throw those out there. Like that's part of what growing, you know, this is about is, you know, throw those questions in there and when we come across it, if we've got the answers, we're going to give them to you. If we don't, you know, hopefully we can track down who's got them. The other thing too is like anybody can shoot an email as well. If it's something you're not comfortable with putting in like the Facebook group, something you want to talk about behind, you know, alone or just with the e-board, that email is there. So, you know, that's something that's an opportunity as well.
Can I make a suggestion and then
Sure.
maybe say a couple other things? first, even just looking through the website is where I would go naturally to find contact information, and it's not terribly easily accessible there. I know people in my network know how to reach out to me, and most of the other officers would say the same thing. Uh, but maybe having official ways to contact us that are easily publicly accessible would be nice, and we could have that in the Facebook page and on the website somewhere fairly prominent. At least for I would say the chairs of any of the committees and maybe the officers.
That's
Um,
definitely something we could
and
work
then
on doing.
Yeah, and then as far as my poor communication or lack of communication regarding the SOP, it was sort of I mean, we were treating it as part of the show committee for all intents and purposes until it was recently split sort of formally because of personality differences and whatnot. So I think Leah, you did an excellent job figuring out who can work with whom and including everyone and whatnot. And then as far as updates, we've been working on basically the same stuff until our next big deadline. And so if people want regular updates, we're happy to do those. But until this most recent meeting, I wasn't aware that the SOP committee was not being included with all the other ones for people to reach out as far as joining it. And so I just never had anyone reach out. And because we were working as a part of the show committee, I hadn't ever pushed that. So I was just communicating basically with Jen and the folks on the show committee when we were going to different shows and getting all the different feedback and taking notes and whatnot. Uh, I had two people, well, one person reach out and one person that I suggested be on it. So that committee's got three people on it now. So we'll start acting, I guess, more independently going forward. But it has never been a requirement to do regular updates. So if it's something that people want, I'm more than happy to do it. But I do want to note that nobody reached out with any questions prior to that previous meeting. So while it's maybe appropriate to ask questions, I think the way that after I saw the meeting afterward, I can't attend the Wednesday meetings. And I know that at least Aaron knew that because he was involved when I was put in this position. And I specifically said I have a commitment on Wednesday nights. So I'll never be able to attend Wednesday meetings.
Why
Most
are we
other
bringing
nights
up
I
somebody
can
that's
be
not
available
here?
or I can answer questions before the meetings. So um, I think that was maybe forgotten to be the most charitable, but I was never contacted in any way. So that's what I thought was highly inappropriate was taking materials from a different committee and then voting to publish them without getting any input from the committee whatsoever. And the only person representing either show or SOP was Bree, and I thought she did a great job kind of saying what our opinion was on that stuff, but it was kind of steamrolled. And so um, it's just very odd behavior. So that's going forward, I would be more than happy to answer questions if people want to reach out to me directly before causing some sort of scene on a meeting that I can't attend. So I just think that needs to be said.
And you have always given me updates anyways prior to the meetings. So let's see.
Why don't we switch the meetings to a time Michael can attend then? Is there a reason that we didn't just switch that? It just
That's
seems like an
actually
easy solution.
That's actually been in discussion because I cannot easily do Wednesdays either. Now that I am in an e-board position, it is something that will be brought up probably amongst e-board first and maybe potentially asked about general members of a day or time that would work better.
And we can put that up for discussion in the Facebook group if someone wants to motion for that. We could
I'll
definitely
motion.
do that.
I second that because kind of not scheduling on Wednesdays is so common amongst organizations because that is a very common conflict for people.
Mhm.
So, Lindsay, you seconded?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. And then we'll go back to I'm not understanding your message, Brent.
Okay, so per bylaw 11.1, members may maintain the following records and request the following records. I request the federal income tax reports, all of our financials for the last 3 years, as well as the names associated with all the banking accounts, since it's supposed to be the treasurer.
Okay. Victoria, I would love to be more involved, but can't do Wednesdays. Okay. All right. Okay, and back to the motion to reopen the SOP back into draft. I don't know if someone wants to motion that.
I'll motion it.
Do we have someone to second?
Second. I'll
And-
second.
Second.
And I'll go ahead and open that up for vote. Ayes or nays?
Aye.
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 I'm gonna go through everybody real quick just so I can catch them all because I'm writing it all down. Okay, Michael, you were
This is the vote in favor.
Aye.
Yes.
to open it up to draft, back to draft.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Michael.
Yes.
Okay, Mason,
Yes.
Chuck, Jen,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bree,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Katie. You can always give me just a hands up if you can't. Let's see, Frank,
Would it be easier for you, Leah, if we just put it in the chat?
that would work too if someone can't speak. Just trying to make sure I catch everybody. It helps with counting.
Does by the bylaws, is this supposed to be 2/3 of the on the show or off? Since the last time we said that it had to be total membership.
So this is for who's here on the meeting, who's attended. Katie, it's for reopening the SOP back to draft instead of final status. And you guys can finish putting those votes in chat. I'm going to go ahead and then go to the 2-minute rule. That's just so when we open the floor at the meeting, we're going to have the 2-minute Roberts rule. And that's just the general Roberts rules of the meetings. It's just a general guideline, just so we can try to keep things in order when we open up the floor for people to speak. You'll have the 2 minutes to, you know, discuss what you want to bring forward. and then we'll move on to the next person who also wants to speak. And then I always suggest that either you email or contact me if you feel you have something to add to the agenda prior to the next meeting. Usually we put the agenda together the weekend prior to the next meeting, but I can always add things closer up to the meeting. And does anybody have any other questions for me today?
So this is going back to the vote. At the time of vote, there was 19 members online. So that is pertinent to the number of votes that you get, just so you know.
Yes, I wrote that. Yeah, 19. All right, and if there's no one else that has anything to bring forward, I'm going to motion to end the meeting.
I can second that motion.
Okay. All right, everybody, you guys have a good night.
Night.
Good night.